Well, if you didn't like what I had to say in my last video on this topic, you're really not going to like what I have to say on this one. Grab your popcorn, boys and girl. So it's time for the next video in my Is Dating Worth It series. This video will explore the topic of my personal standards. Now, we all have standards. Some are just incredibly lower than others. Some are unreasonably higher than others. And I'm going to talk about my standards in this video, along with a few other topics. So the format of this video will be as follows. I'll talk about my standards in a potential partner. So basically, what I would look for when I'm talking to girls and going on dates. Now, I have 3 specific requirements that I will elaborate on. I could extend this list, but then it just becomes you being too picky. You'll most likely never find your perfect match, especially in this dating market, for both genders. There's a very common trait with women these days that most men don't want. And there's a very common trait these days with many men that women don't want. But I will talk about that in a follow-up video. I only have 3 primary requirements. The rest I can work around. So I will tell you what these 3 primary requirements are. Next, I will talk about why these are requirements of mine. I have these requirements. Okay, cool. Now tell us why these traits are important to you. Third, I will talk about why I personally feel I have every right to require/request/want these traits in a partner. No doubt this section specifically will trigger people, but that's good. And if you've got any issues with anything I say in this video, great news! There's an amazing concept called comments. What you can do is go to the comments section and type angrily away. Isn't modern technology amazing? So third talking point is basically justifying myself on my standards. Example, you can't be a Reddit video game neckbeard wanting a Sydney Sweeney girlfriend. Nope, doesn't work. Even if many chicks these days seem to think it works in the other direction. Now, between these 3 primary talking points in this video, sections may slightly overlap. Example, when I'm talking about why I want reason 2 in a partner, I may branch off and mention why I feel I can demand/require that trait in a partner, even though there'll be a whole designated section for that. Depends on how this script flows, but I'll justify myself by the end of the video nonetheless. But before we begin, I must state a few things first, since this provides very important context to this video. 1. I am not lonely or desperate. My life is great as it is right now with no partner. And no, I am also not even remotely participating in hookup culture. Huge difference between someone who says they have no partner but is still actively engaging in sexual activities versus me who's just chillin' and locked in on the grind. So I have a lot going on in my life, heaps of goals being hit, as I'll no doubt talk about in section 3, so my life is great as is. This entire conversation changes if I was lonely or desperate. Like, beggars can't be choosers, so I can't really have a section 1, which are my requirements, which aren't even that high, by the way, spoiler alert. But if I was desperate/lonely, I can also then be like, oh, I'm so lonely, but I'm only lonely for 10 out of 10 snow bunnies. Doesn't work that way. If she doesn't fit my 3 requirements, that is totally fine. You live your own life, queen, but you are not compatible with me. But I would have no right in saying that if I was desperate and constantly whinging about being single. I have more than 200 videos on my channel at this point, and less than 5 of them have been centered around women. Clearly, I am not desperate for a relationship. And again, this entire conversation changes if I was. Next caveat, I am not actively looking, as in I'm not going to random bars on a Friday night. I'm not even on dating apps. In fact, it's a Friday night at the time of recording this voiceover, lol. Here I am in my car recording this voiceover when I could be at a bar trying to find some chicks. And also, I haven't once asked my friends to hook me up or set me up with their friends. Now, this might confuse some of you, because it's like, why are you making a video on standards if you're not actively dating? Well, it doesn't change the ultimate point of, these are my 3 requirements, take it or leave it. Additionally, I have friends, if you can believe that. You think these friends don't tell me about the dating market? And you don't think I see the stories online? Yeah, online isn't the same as the real world where you touch grass, but I did mention I have friends who tell me about it. One friend specifically goes to a very, very social gym, and he's like one of the biggest dudes there. Thus, naturally, he becomes friends with a lot of the gym goers there, and he tells me about them and their stories. Also, one of my jobs is extremely social and very involved with the local community. So I also hear local stories, see local people, know what everyone is up to, etc. So even though I'm not directly involved, I get more than enough of an inside scoop into the dating scene to know what's going on. And this will play into section 2 and 3 specifically. Another thing, me not being on dating apps, if anything, is a positive to my market value in the dating market. I am fairly certain most women would like this trait in a guy, which further adds to my section 3 part, the part on me saying why I am justified in my wants in a partner. But again, as I said before, actively dating or not doesn't change the fact that I have 3 primary requirements I want in a partner. Okay, so let's get into the juicy stuff. So I mentioned 3 primary requirements / traits / qualities that I want / desire in a partner. What are these 3 traits? They are 1. Financial stability. This can be in the form of either a stable career / business that pays well. I'm not expecting some $200,000 a year salary, but something like $60,000 a year also doesn't cut it. Oh my god, what? Unrealistic expectations? Shh. Wait, I will explain in sections 2 and 3. So a salary / business income that is above average. My preference would be for a career path of sorts, either via a trade or uni degree, or maybe just good old-fashioned working your way up at a company. Yeah, I know there's no company loyalty these days, but you could still gain skills from working at that company you could use to go to another company. But financial stability is a must in a partner of mine. Desirable trait / quality number 2 in a partner, fit / good body / gym chick. Self-explanatory, we like attractive chicks. Oh my god, but all women are beautiful, you shallow pig. Just wait, hear out sections 2 and 3 first. Or not, leave your angry comment now, cause comments are good for the algorithm, and my channel's attention has slumped recently. My brand stat is literally the only negative / stagnant thing in my life right now, which I'll talk about in section 3, so you'd be doing me a solid by helping pump up this lagging stat. Thanks. So basically, attractive partner. I know, right? Wow, so original. Never heard someone say they want an attractive partner before. And lastly, the 3rd desirable trait I look for in a partner is not being a hoe. Oh no, I've just signed my death warrant, haven't I? Gamification's funeral is scheduled for 1 week from today. How dare he have this trait in a partner? Okay, so now that I've listed the 3 traits I desire, it's time for section 2, justifying myself. You have your 3 traits, now why do you want these 3 traits? Starting with financial stability. Okay, so this is a very, very interesting topic, and the reason is because you hear a lot of the red pill masculinity type people who say that men don't care about a woman's income. Well, speak for yourself. I care, and one of my close mates also cares. I think the primary reason most of the masculinity grifters say this is because it's a response to the boss bitch type women who are like, why don't men want me? I have a good career. And then blah, 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 they list a bunch of traits that no one gives a shit about. Or they're like, men are intimidated by successful women. I absolutely care about a woman's career and her income, but I also have the other 2 traits I want. No offense, but I don't care about your $120,000 a year job if you're fat and very ran through. Insert raging feminist here. I was going to make some running gag mocking these types, but the joke would get old fast. So from now on, I'm just going to say what I'm going to say and I'll move on. So the grifters are wrong. Men do care about your income, or at least they should, for reasons I'll explain later. But it's not the only thing you can have going for you. Apply that logic in reverse for men. Fellas, if you tick one box that women want and ignore the rest, is a job finished? Or is a job not finished? Which one is it? If I was a gambling man, and I am, I'd put money on the one box you ticked not being enough. Gotta tick more boxes. Now yes, this can go out of control with all the demands that I've seen from psychos online, but for my preferences, there's only 3 we're talking about today. And these are like the 3 main ones. Like I said earlier, I can work around the rest, but you've got to have these 3. Now, the reason I care about a woman's income is not because so she can pay for all my dinners, buy me expensive gifts, pay my rent, etc., etc. It's because 1, you can do so much more as a couple with dual incomes. 2, I just like ambitious women. 3, social reasons. And 4, it's hedging my bets. It's a financial risk management strategy. Starting off with reason 1, you can do so much more as a couple. I mean, I don't really need to elaborate on this really. If one of you makes $90,000 a year versus both of you making $90,000 a year, which couple has more freedom to go on more holidays, to cover debts faster, to have less stress in their lives since their financial position is better? Exactly, the couple that has the 2 decent income earners. Now, I know no one watched or cared about a recent holiday video I made, but I was in Perth not too long ago, and we visited many relatives. One relative over there has strong ties to mining businesses over there, and if you know anything about the Western Australian economy, it's that mining is where the big bucks are. So at one point, we're at a fancy-as Airbnb. Very cool. Overlooked the bay, several stories high, can't complain. And at one stage we met the neighbours and they were ranting about the gardener for the neighbour across the street because they were blowing all of the dead leaves and dirt and dust onto their property, since the gardener was blowing it out of the other property onto the street, which in turn blew into their yards. Rich people problems. But it turns out the couple who owned the giant waterfront mansion next door to the Airbnb we were at were a doctor and accountant combo. The male was a doctor, the female was an accountant. So why did I mention this? Because they own this huge-ass house in a great area. Try doing this on 1 income. Now, they were an older couple, so they may have bought this great piece of real estate at a cheaper price when they were younger, but the point stands, they had this option in the first place only due to their dual income status. Yes, doctors make a fuckload, but I can assure you a doctor's salary alone was not enough to buy the house they were in. Now, I may not have aspirations or goals of owning a house that large in that area, but it still ties back to my point. You can simply do more as a couple if you both have good incomes. 2, I just like ambitious women. I mean, what do you want from me? I just like women who aren't lazy. 3, social reasons. Now, whether you want to admit it or not, people care about their social status. Why is it always that doctors and lawyers are mentioned in media when talking about good incomes? Engineers are an honourable mention, and maybe if we're lucky, us accountants get a mention too. And hey, I always do the same. I suck off doctors all the time on this channel. Yes, obviously these career paths make money, but so do Instagram models and OnlyFans models, so why don't I ever mention them when talking about high income? Well, a lot of that success comes down to your genetics, the way you look, and algorithm luck, both of which are things you can't really change. And most of my audience are dudes, so OnlyFans isn't really a viable strategy for us to get rich, since most women aren't stupid with their money as some men, and they won't pay for that shit. It's also way easier for them to get attention compared to men. But it's also the social status thing. Pretty sure most people are going to be more happy that their daughter is a doctor versus an OnlyFans model. Whenever you first chat to someone, what's one of the first questions you ask? Usually it's what do you do for a living? Your social status is at least somewhat tied to your occupation, or the way you make your living. Whenever you are told to talk about yourself, usually in some sort of introductory social setting, usually you say your name and then your occupation. Example, hi, nice to meet you all, my name is Gamification, I'm 28, I'm an accountant. You also see it on the news and shit, when they're like interviewing someone, they have their name and their occupation. I'd go on, but I'm certain you get my point. But why do I personally care about social status? Well, because I'm a human, and there's many reasons in point 3 that also justify why, but one of the things I'll talk about now is my own personal female friends. A lot of my female friends have good jobs. Some have great jobs. But in particular, I have a university friendship group, like all of us who went to uni together. Now, some of us in our group are still single, example me, but for the rest who are taken, the people who didn't go to our uni group, the like partners of our uni friends, guess what they do for work? Yep, they do something nice / prestigious / something that pays good / great. My mate who also did accounting is now dating a teacher. I don't know how much teachers get paid in other countries, but here in Australia they get a pretty good deal. Super stable job, pays well, it can pay great if you get into certain schools. And obviously the time off over the school breaks. Another friend in my group, she's a lawyer, and she's now dating some dude who works in cybersecurity at the big four accounting firms. So, obviously great job, great pay. Never went to uni with him, but see how this lawyer chick, aka great career, found someone who also has a great career? Interesting. My other friend from uni, she's like in, sales at some real estate company in Melbourne, makes great income. She's dating a plumber. Now again, I don't know how they get paid overseas, but here in Australia, plumbers make bank. Well, depending on the situation. Once you're done with your apprenticeship, you're looking at bare minimum 80,000 Australian dollar dues per year. In most cases, it's a decent bit more. So once again, someone in my friendship group met someone who had a great career. Interesting. I'd go on, but you get the idea. So riddle me this, if all my uni friends have good/great careers/jobs, and all of their partners also have good/great careers, would it make sense for me to bring along some girl to our social events who works 15 hours a week part-time at a whatever job? Here come all the people in the comments saying it doesn't matter. Well, my friends, they personally would not give a shit. They would not care. But I do. I'm yet to elaborate on all the reasons why, but I'd much prefer to say my girl is a nurse versus my girl has a small Instagram business making 100% recycled holiday greeting cards. Oh, shallow is it? Stick around for section 3 of this video and you'll see if this is a shallow statement or not. I see power couples in terms of careers all the time. Why should I be excluded from that? It's not even just my social circle either. I go to a bank, I see quite a few women working there. I go for a dental checkup, I see quite a few women working there. I go to my home builder's headquarters, I see many women working there. I deal with people at my accounting job from other businesses, they have women representing them. So it's not like I just so happen to have the only friends on the planet in this specific circumstance. It's a very common trait. It's not like a one-off rare instance. Oh, my friend is a millionaire, so you have to be too. It's all my friends have good jobs. I see heaps of people in my everyday life who have good jobs. I also have a good job, so why can't you? Yes, I know there are many people right now who aren't in that situation, hence the cost of living and housing crisis in my country right now. But it's not like these people I'm talking about are part of the top 1%. These people are part of the top 30%. I am part of the top 30%, so why aren't you? It's not like I'm in the bottom 90th percentile and I'm wanting you to be in the top 1%. I am part of the top 30%. Plenty of room up here. So I also want you to be part of this top 30%. And again, in section 3, I'll talk about myself more and you'll understand. I have a few additional traits that put me well above many other guys my age, but I'm not even asking for my partner to match my level. I'm asking them to match a standard baseline, which is apparently too much to ask, despite the fact I did it myself and see plenty of others who did. Again, stick around for section 3, but for instance, I am not asking my partner to have their own house, which is something I could very easily ask for, which you'll know why in the next part, or asking her to have an advanced degree/qualification/a post-tertiary degree, which again, I could also ask for as it's something I have, but I am not. Just a good, stable, decent to well-paying job. That is all I ask. But oh my god, ick! It gives me the ick. If you're a guy, you can't have any sort of demands because that's arrogant, despite the fact I know my standings in the dating market based off what I hear women want. The difference between confidence and arrogance is your gender. A chick has all the standards in the world and the response is, "Yas, queen, don't settle, you deserve better." A man has standards and he's an arrogant, narcissistic, entitled prick. So if I elaborated more, this video would be even longer, and it's already going to be pretty long. And I made my point. So reason 3 as to why I want a girl with financial stability/a good career, it's for the social reasons. Now, last reason, and a big section. Reason 4, hedging my bets, it's a financial risk management strategy. What do I mean by this? Well, it's called the family courts/the legal system. Now, here in my country, the laws are rigged against the party who has the most assets/makes the most money in the event of a relationship breakdown. Well, that's me if I don't have standard 1 as a standard. If I disregarded the income/earnings in a partner, if things progress after a while, but then end, I stand to have my assets split up and will also be stitched up with paying alimony. For anyone who doesn't know, alimony is like you pay your ex-partner even after you've split up. This is common in cases where one partner made a lot of money and the other didn't make any or made very little during the relationship. So let's delve into grok here, since this will help explain my stance further. Here I've given a scenario where I make $150,000, which is a very likely salary for me in the future, since that also covers the timeline of meeting someone, establishing a long-term relationship, and then that relationship breaking down. And for my partner, I've given a $35,000 salary, since this can be a common salary for those only working part-time. So first, in my country, when there's a relationship breakdown, they pool your assets together and divide them up between the two parties. What assets are entailed in this breakdown? Well, they include your house and your superannuation fund. Superannuation is what we call our retirement fund here in Australia. Now, yes, I have a house. I will talk much more on this later in the video. Well, the house is currently being built actually, but there's no way I could get into a relationship breakup before my house is built anyway, unless I somehow found a girlfriend literally tomorrow, we split up after a few months, in which case it's not long enough for her to receive any sort of financial support anyway. Point is, I will have a house. And it's not some future dream that one day I am hoping for. It's literally being built right now as you watch/listen to this video, presuming you're watching it within a few months of the upload. I have the bank loan sorted, as well as my finances. Everything is proceeding as planned. There's quite literally going to be no hiccups here unless the home builder goes insolvent, which is extremely unlikely. Even then, some other builder would pick up the project. What I'm saying is it's only a matter of time before my house is actually built. And I also have a bit over $60,000 in my retirement fund at the moment too. It's a complete scam how this gets used up in an asset pool when a relationship breakdown happens. I mean, it's all a scam anyway, but especially your retirement fund, but especially your house. But you get the idea. I have assets that I worked very hard for. These are all on the line in a relationship breakdown. The equity I have in my house is going to be at least $255,000. Equity in your home is the value of your home, take away the loan balance. Long story short, my house should be valued at a bare minimum $665,000 when it's built, and my loan will be at an absolute most of $410,000 by the time my home is built. This is not to say anything about in the future when my loan shrinks due to repayments, as well as the value of my house going up. Now, in a relationship breakdown, the equity goes into the asset pool. Something I busted my ass for, working 2 jobs, making smart investments, well, now it's on the line. Next, even if my hypothetical spouse didn't actually pay any money to the house, no mortgage repayments, no rent, nothing, but contributed in other ways, which is vague as fuck, and knowing the family courts in my country, they'll count anything. Even if she put away her own dishes after dinner as contributing, this will be used against me in the event of a relationship breakdown. Third, future needs. The courts will say some shit like, oh, she really needs the extra support. Yeah, she needs the support because she decided to leech off me for ages instead of getting a better paying job or working more hours, like a real adult, like what I did. Keep all this in mind since it'll come together nicely at the end of this section. Fourth, you can see the outcomes here all involve some payout to my hypothetical ex-spouse. Even in the best case scenario for me, I still have to pay out something, simply because my house has value and the ex-partner contributed, heavy quotation marks, to the house in some way. Wow, she put away her own dishes like an adult should do. Guess that makes her entitled to at least tens of thousands of dollars. As for this section on spousal support/alimony, no matter what way you slice it, there's a heavy risk that you gotta pay something. Oh, boo-hoo gamification, $500 a month is nothing. Well, $500 a month would cover my petrol and private health insurance. I'd be losing that a month at a best case scenario, just because you dated some chick with no money. Additionally, you can see where it says, if she's been reliant on your income during the relationship, this strengthens her case. Why was she reliant on my income? She's an adult. Why can't she go to work and survive on her own? She's not a 6-year-old kid, and I'm not her parent. I might be her daddy, but I'm not her parent. So last bit for this specific set of grok responses, short relationship, no kids, which is the best case outcome for a relationship breakdown. It states I may need to pay her a modest sum of 20 to 30% of its equity. You might say, well, the AI was giving an example, it might be less than this. Yes, you're right, it might be less than this, but I've seen the family courts in my country. I guarantee you it will be not less than this. If anything, it'll be way more. But let's just use 20% since I'm a nice guy, and I'm also being conservative here. Even at the low estimates, and a relationship breaking down relatively quickly with no kids involved, if I have to pay my ex-partner 20% of the equity in my house, 20% of $255,000 equals $51,000. Are you fucking kidding me, cunt? Just because I busted my ass and picked an area with good capital growth, and because I saved an enormous down payment, thus shrinking my mortgage, both factors of capital growth and a low bank loan resulted in my equity in my house being way higher than normal, I would get punished financially for this if I got into the wrong relationship. And guess what? That's only working off a 20% figure, and that's also working off my absolute lowest value case, as at the time my house will be built. Let's say in a few years my house is valued at $720,000, my loan has shrunk to $390,000, and now I have a relationship breakdown costing me a 30% equity payout. That's $99,000. Basically, gotta pay her out $100,000. Bruh. I must say though, that's great ROI for the lady. All she had to do was pretend to be a nice person for a few years, then leave the relationship, and she gets a nice 6-figure payout. This also doesn't count alimony or the splitting of our other assets such as cash, stocks, retirement funds, but all my hypothetical ex-partner has to do is say she couldn't live off her own income, and bam! Alimony support is now something I have to deal with. But I have more than made my point. In this scenario, because I have decided to ignore my first requirement in a partner, I have now set up the potential for losing a lot of money in the case of a relationship breakdown. But guess what? You could avoid all of this by simply dating a girl with money. If you have a relationship breakdown with a girl with a similar asset pool / net worth to you, well, when things are split up and divided, they'd be basically the same anyway. And you won't be paying alimony since she can support herself, since she has a high-paying job. There are also other ways like putting assets in trusts and shit. Oh wait, guess what? No they're not. You're not safe in Australia. Look at this shit. I thought you could use some corporate trust or something to protect your assets, but nope. The savage courts here in Australia will literally dig through this shit. So you're basically cooked if she ever lives in your house and you treat it as such. The only way to get out of this situation seems to be having some sort of fixed trust. And even then, the courts will dig through this. Like, wow, there's no hiding in Australia. You can see it here in the ownership versus control section. But if you're still living there or paying the $410,000 loan with your $150,000 salary, courts raise an eyebrow. Looks like you're benefiting, not mum. Yeah, of course I'd be living there. It's my fucking house. In the financial resources part, it also says that my potential ex-spouse could actually receive more in assets after a split if somehow I lived in my own house for free. Like, I don't know, some backdoor funding to my mum so that she pays the mortgage instead of me. You can also see, once again, in the her contributions section, even if she pays no rent and just does some chores, which guess what? Obviously she would be if she lives in my house. Do you think I'm going to clean up after her? She's an adult. She can clean up after herself the same way I do. Even if I did all the chores in the courtroom, I can guarantee you she'd still argue that she did some chores, or at least her lawyer would. That still makes her entitled to a payday. And now for this summary here, there's no way around it. As long as I live in the house, its equity is up for grabs in a relationship breakdown. Even if I went through the hassle of setting this up before getting into a relationship, because I'd obviously live in it and fund it, since there's no way my parents can pay my mortgage. My mortgage is more expensive than theirs and they can barely pay their own. I can't hide this asset. I'd list more legal situations like if I established a company that controls the asset, but then this video would be even longer and the principles still remain. I am living in the house. The courts will dig through this and find out that the house is mine. Thus, my potential ex-partner is entitled to some monies. What about prenups? Nope, they throw those out in courts a lot of the time because the other party will argue that it was signed under duress. So that doesn't work. And scarily enough, even a binding financial agreement doesn't work, since if she contributes in any way, she has some legal case towards part ownership of the house. And guess what? Contributing in any way? Are you telling me that I'd have to pay her own bills and all the mortgage while she lives in the house for free? Is this what I need to do to protect my assets? Well, even if I did that, guess what? Stuff like homemaking can be considered contributing, which is vague as fuck. She cleans up after her own mess like a responsible adult instead of leaving a huge mess like some spoiled child. That's homemaking. Bam. That's a contribution to the house. So now this binding financial agreement is null and void. There's no way around it. My house is wide open for fleecing if I got into a relationship. So you get the point. My partner is entitled to a nifty payday if there's a relationship breakdown, and no amount of law/accounting trickery can save my ass either. So how do you mitigate this problem? Well, 1, don't live with your partner. I know Aaron Clary does this, smart guy. But not living with your partner would cause some issues, no doubt. Basically, every couple I know lives together. I personally wouldn't have a problem with not living together. Like, we don't need to be tethered to the hip joint. We can have our own independent lives, and I've learned to be content with my own company, have my own things to do on my own, example, this YouTube channel, trading stocks, etc. But eventually, the conversation of moving in together would arise, and well, I already have my own house. So no doubt the conversation becomes, can I move in with you? And 2, you can mitigate this problem by simply dating a girl who has her own money. In this case, she'd have her own loan serviceability and a big down payment due to her high-paying job. She could put down her part, her 50% towards a house. I could use equity in my house as my part, and we could then both get an additional loan from the bank for our own separate place together. And then I could do some accounting trickery to protect my first house since I'm not living in it. Not totally sure how it would work if I used equity from that property for my joint property with my partner, but that's something I'll look at later down the track if I ever get close to this situation. Also, we're not considering kids or marriage here at all, so that just makes things, I guess, a bit worse. But this isn't what the video is about. I will talk about that in a future video. But for now, we're not talking about marriage or kids. We're just talking about sort of like a sort of general standard relationship. If there are kids or marriage involved, I'm definitely getting potentially fleeced a lot worse than I am here. But obviously, if it led to marriage or kids, I'd have a lot more trust in her. And she'd also have her own money because I ain't marrying no broke bitch. Basically, I'm protecting my house by getting a separate one with my partner. But guess what? Can't really get another house with your partner if your partner doesn't make enough money. I'm not your financial lifeline. I'm not putting my house at risk or risk paying out tens of thousands of dollars in the event of a breakup, which statistically speaking is likely. You'd only get a juicy payout because I busted my ass and put a down payment of $187,000, thus reducing the loan size, thus increasing the equity, thus resulting in a bigger potential payout. You are not going to profit from my hard work and smart decisions. You can avoid this by picking a partner who can uphold their end of the financial bargain. Now, this is different if you bought together or are already living together, obviously, but this video is about my standards and my reasonings. My personal circumstances are that I already have my own house without a partner, so now I need to adjust my standards accordingly, or I risk losing a lot of coin. Thanks to the rules in the server I'm playing in, thanks to the laws in Australia. Now, I'll debug this counter-argument I can already see coming from a mile away. It's in my channel's best interest to not mention this since it would result in a comment or comments, but I'm going to debunk this comment. Well, you could just have a good relationship that doesn't result in a breakup. You'd only lose money in this situation if you broke up, so just don't break up. I've seen some people online talk about don't be a shitty partner if you don't want a relationship breakdown. Bruh, you do realize in many cases the other party in the relationship becomes insufferable or becomes a cheater or whatever. I know a handful of former relationships that ended recently due to either the man getting caught cheating or the female getting caught due to things that she did in the past, despite the fact that 3 months ago, both of those relationships were going well. In a lot of cases, people change, regardless of your own actions, male or female. Imagine spending years in a relationship, your partner cheats, and because you aren't a simp cuck with no self-respect, you don't put up with that. You split from your partner, and now the government gets involved and says, now you've also got to pay out your partner tens of thousands of dollars on top of the betrayal. Miss me with that shit. So I avoid this by getting a partner with her own financial stability. Another counter argument is that I'm prepping for Doomsday. Oh, this is such an unlikely scenario. This never happens. It's like those people with bunkers who are preparing for a zombie apocalypse. That's so unlikely to happen. But in this instance, relationship breakdowns, no, they're not rare. They're a coin flip based on statistics. And not even statistics. It's what I've seen with my own eyes with many people I know. You're going into a relationship that statistically has a 50% fail rate. And if it does fail after a set amount of years, you're out of pocket tens of thousands of dollars if you pick someone without enough income. That's a bad gamble. Remember the Paul George comment after Damian Lillard's series-ending 3-bomb in the 2019 playoffs? That's a bad shot?
Yeah. I mean, that's a bad shot.
Well, that's a bad gamble. You're going to let someone live in your own house that you put $187,000 down for, that's costing you more than $2,400 a month in mortgage repayments for free, and if that doesn't work out, the best case scenario is that you have to pay them out tens of thousands of dollars. That's a bad gamble. I don't care what anybody says, that's a bad gamble. So you hedge this risk by dating a girl who has her own income. That way she can go half on our own separate house together, or apartment or whatever, and if things end, you both end up in a much fairer scenario compared to the one I've been talking about for a while now. So that is why I want to partner with financial stability. It's a financial hedge. You can achieve and do so much more as a dual income household. I just like chicks with money, and it's also for social reasons. Now, next part, I want a girl who's fit. Why? Gee, I don't know, because they look good. But let's also give some additional reasons. 1, social standings. 2, compatible lifestyles. And 3, look at me, I'm a fit guy too. Relating to social standings, you see fit couples all the time, not only on social media, but in the gym. If I dated a non-gym girl, it makes no sense. I'm not going to be busting my ass at the gym after work while she's sitting on the couch lazing around. That'll trigger some people, but explain to me how I'm wrong. I'm genuinely curious. If I'm a gym dude, that makes it okay to want a gym girl, right? It's not like I'm a couch potato asking for a Gymshark chick. Also, this relates back to what I mentioned earlier with my university social circle all entailing people who are financially stable. So, I want to bring along a financially stable girly. Same with gym. Now, my uni friend group aren't gym rats, but I do have gym friends separate from that uni group. And surprise, surprise, they're all dating gym girls. So if we had a friend gathering and I'm bringing along a girl that doesn't gym, that's not going to make sense. Got to bring along a gym girl. And hey, again, like I said in the last social reasoning, it's not like I'm asking for the top 1% body. I'm asking for the top 30%, which I am in the gym sense. There's plenty of space up here. Not an unrealistic ask. But whenever you mention this, you sound entitled and obnoxious. But am I wrong? If I'm a gym dude, it makes sense to date a gym girl, does it not? Legitimately curious for the reasons against this rationale. If you disagree, let me know why, because I legitimately do not understand why this is not a fair ask. 2, compatible lifestyles. You see couples in the gym all the time. It's a fun couples activity, and it's a big part of my life. If I can't share one of the biggest parts of my life with a partner, well, it's not going to work out, is it? No pun intended. You don't have to be totally the same as your partner. I know there's couples who have totally different careers, different hobbies, but surely sharing the gym as a mutual interest isn't a tough ask, especially because, as I said, top 30%, not top 1%. Plenty of people in the gyms, not a difficult ask, considering I have done it myself. This conversation changes if I was not a gym dude myself. 3, look at me. So I basically covered this already, but I'm a gym dude. Here are pics of me when I'm leaner, closer to 10% body fat. Clearly I am aesthetic. There's a difference between having abs because you're 60 kilos and being a giant roided out dude. Because I know chicks generally don't like the mass monsters, which I know I am not. They like the more beach body types, which is what I have. Now those are pics from 2017 to 2018, 2019. Why did I show these? Because it shows how long the gym thing has been in my DNA. Huge difference compared to some dude who's just been gymming for 3 months demanding a gym chick. Here is me in early 2023. Again, aesthetic/lean enough. Here's me later in 2023. Why aren't you showing pics of what you look like now? You got out of shape and yet you're still demanding a gym chick, I bet. Well, here's me recently. I am about 16 to 17% body fat right now, quite a bit heavier, but I show those other images to show that obviously I can be aesthetic. I've just recently come off a huge bulk, so I'm not at my usual leanness right now, but the bulk has worked and you'll see how well it's worked in a few months. And it's not like, oh, I'll lose weight eventually and it's over for you. The false threat type of argument. I've done about 7 to 8 cutting phases in my life. I know how to cut weight. Here's my cut progress this year. You can clearly see it going down. Gotta take it slow or I'll shed off the muscle I gained from my bulk. Now here are images of me in the past versus the more high-level aesthetic guys. Yeah, obviously I'm not the top dog here, but these guys are literally famous due to their physiques. They get paid for it. Meanwhile, I have a whole career built off non-gym stuff, which I will talk about later. I don't even know how I'll look when I've finished this cut, but could I be close to this level? Again, like I said, obviously I have the worst physique compared to the other guys, but it's really not that far off. My point is I am fully aware that I have an aesthetic body type. Maybe not top 1%, but I never asked for top 1% in my partner, did I? I asked for top 30%, which I clearly am. Oh my god, bro is a narcissist. Am I wrong? Is this not a top 30% physique? I'd argue it's way higher, but in terms of my requirements, top 30% is all I ask, which I have attained myself. It's not like, for instance, I'm a gym dude, I work out, but my diet is ass, I've only been working out for a few months, my training is lax, and I have a skinny fat physique, but here I am demanding a gym/fit girl. Yes, in that case I am a gym guy, but I wouldn't look the part. Well, clearly I look the part because I've seen the beach bodies that women seem to like, and I've seen my body at a lower body fat percentage, which I am only not now currently due to a planned bulk, which I am reversing as we speak. Well, as I speak. So we'll cut this section here since I've made my point, and we need to get this video moving. I want a gym girl because I am a gym guy myself, and if she isn't, our lifestyles would not be compatible, she wouldn't get along with my gym friends, and she also just wouldn't be as attractive, which matters in a relationship whether people want to admit it or not. Now, last part for the second section, I want a chick that isn't a hoe, something that most dudes also don't want. Don't let a bunch of hoes and white knights online shame your choice. You can have whatever demand you want. Whether you have the right to justify those demands is on you, but you're allowed to want what you want. Feel free to let me know how shallow of a pig I am in the comments section below. But there's a few reasons specifically I don't want a hoe-ass girlfriend. 1, I just don't. 2, old habits die hard. Past behavior is a good measure of future behavior. 3, potentially awkward situations. And 4, financial hedges. So reason 1, I just don't want a hoe. Most dudes don't. There's biological reasons behind it too, but I'd rather a chick that hasn't slept with some of the dudes I went to high school or uni with. 2, old habits die hard. Past behavior is a good measure of future behavior. Some may argue, well, she's gotten her hoe phase done, she's ready to settle down now. That's not what I've seen play out in reality. In more cases than not, the hoe, man or woman, wants to relive their past after a few years of married life/long-term relationship life. If they were never a hoe, they have nothing to reminisce about. If you were that keen on heaps of dick in the past, how do I know you won't want to go back to that later? This will tie into point 4. But point 2 is basically, are you sure you're done being a hoe? Michael Jordan is widely considered the greatest basketball player of all time. My vote is for LeBron James, but that's not the point. Michael Jordan hasn't played a game of professional basketball in more than 20 years, but yet he's still considered the greatest player. It doesn't matter if you aren't like that anymore, that's your legacy. Point 3, awkward situations. Now, it's one thing if they had a bunch of one-night stands in another country, which is still kind of bad to be honest, but it's another when it's people you interact with. I know a friendship group where one couple in that relationship has been together for like 4 years, but the chick has slept with one of her boyfriend's friends before they were together. And dude, you can just feel how awkward it is when they're chatting at parties or gatherings. Not something I want to be involved in. This situation happened because the two dudes became friends after that chick started dating one of them. So it's not like something he knew going into the relationship, but still, something you want to not get involved in. You mitigate this situation by not dating hoes. It goes the other way too. One of my female friends was being hit on by some guy she knew, and she told me and my other friend that she wasn't interested because he had slept with her friends in the past, and our other female friend said, yeah, I don't want that either. I don't think most people want that really. So you dodge this by dodging the hoes, man or woman. Now, if you're a hater of gamification of life, here is the perfect opportunity for you to jump in and say, it's just because you're insecure, or small dick energy. Well done. Perfect rebuttals. You got me. Enjoy dating girls that your friends have already ran through and walking down the aisle with your homeboys' leftovers. To each their own. Now, point 4. This relates back to my point for dating financially stable girls. So, financial hedge. If you date a hoe, like I said, old habits die hard. Who's to say she doesn't cheat in a few years? And because I have self-respect, I'm not going to deal with that. So I end the relationship. Oh look, Australian government has entered the chat, and now I have to pay her some monies, because that's how the courts work in this country. The more promiscuous past results in a higher chance of relationship breakdowns. There's even statistics on this too. And that will result in me getting fleeced for my money in the family courts. So, mitigate this risk by not dating the hoes. So those are my 4 reasons to end section 2. One of my requirements in a partner is for them to not be a hoe, and the reasons are because I just don't want to date a hoe, old habits die hard, it can get awkward, and I'm more likely to lose money if I disregard this requirement. Now, I'll bring up the insecure argument again. The hoes and simps will be like, if you were a real man, you wouldn't care about her past. Okay, sure, I'm not a real man. It's like Pinocchio. We all know how his nose grows if he lies, but the other trait of Pinocchio is he wants to be a real boy. He needs to prove himself brave, truthful, and unselfish, and someday he will be a real boy. Except in this case, I need to be okay with her OnlyFans, her 2 kids from another relationship, and her 50-plus body count in order to be a real man. Okay, sure, I'm not a real man then, but stick around to find out what this real man is. If I'm not a real man, then I would certainly hope you make more than I do, have a better career ceiling, have more assets, have a higher net worth, have a better physique, etc. Because if you don't, then that's kind of embarrassing, not going to lie. How are you getting life-mogged by a guy who isn't a real man then? Also, something I forgot to mention in this script, there's also some talks of like performance in bed. It's like some people will argue that one side or the other is more insecure because the other one has had more experience or something. It's like, oh, you suck in bed, that's why you don't want a girl who's had experience in bed or something. Or vice versa. The female doesn't want a man-hoe because she'll just lay there like a starfish. Pretty weak argument in my opinion, because wouldn't you just explore that stuff together? It's not like, oh, the first route was really bad, call off the relationship. Like, no, don't you practice together? So that argument doesn't really make sense, in my opinion anyway. Obviously, someone's going to disagree, which is fine. Make sure you tell me how dumb I am in the comments for having this opinion. But yeah, I do know that that is a common argument for that sort of topic, but I just don't see it that way. So now we've gone over sections 1 and 2, which are my requirements and the reasons why. Now we're at section 3. This section justifies my requirements and myself. Example, if you want a girl with money, why do you think you deserve this when you're unemployed and play video games all day? If you want a fit girl, how can you demand this when you don't even lift? If you want a chick who's not a hoe, how can you ask for this when you get around yourself? So the first part, financial stability requirement, why do I feel I can ask for this? Well, because I am financially stable myself. Here's why. I currently have 2 jobs that are quite stable. I did recently make a video on calculating how I'd fare in a redundancy at my current full-time job. The concern wasn't unjustified. The company is losing money, like many other businesses around the world, but recently there was a meeting and they're cutting hours elsewhere, not cutting my job. So I am safe. For now. We'll see how I fare in a few months' time. So anyway, these 2 jobs pay me around $127,000 per year, and this figure will obviously only be higher in the coming years. My full-time job, which is in accounting, pays about $90,000 a year in total. My part-time job at a supermarket pays around $37,000 a year in total. Hence the $127,000 figure. My full-time accounting role will only pay more and more into the future too. My current roles and responsibilities are that of a finance manager, which is a specific sort of job title related to a particular accounting path, the one I'm on. The job descriptions for these jobs are almost a mirror of what I currently do, give or take a few extra responsibilities specific to each role, give or take a few extra responsibilities specific to each business. There is also an educational requirement that comes along with these finance manager jobs too, which is having your advanced accounting qualification, which is either your CPA or CA here in Australia. Now, this is post-tertiary, so it's above uni, and I've completed that. It was an enormous thorn in my side. So really, the only thing preventing me from these jobs is even if I want to apply to these jobs or not. I have my own reasons for not getting these jobs right now, and they're not important for the sake of this video, but the point for this video is these jobs are obviously in striking range for me. It's not like I'm looking at a $600,000 surgeon job and being like, oh yeah, I'll get there one day when I haven't even started my first class in medical studies yet. No, there is a clear path and a clear progression runway to these finance manager jobs. As you can see, they all pay upwards of $130,000. So, great income. I also have my own house, as I mentioned earlier. Now, this house is a 4-bed, 2-bath, 2-car garage, 2 lounge, 1 outdoor living house. So, it's not some small 1-bedroom apartment. Lots of space. So obviously, it wasn't cheap. It's located in a middle-class suburban neighborhood, so I'm not in some gated community or overlooking some beach. But guess what? I'm a single 28-year-old living in Australia. The fact that I have my own place that isn't a 1-bedroom apartment is already an accomplishment, head and shoulders above the rest. Not to be cocky, but it's a pretty neat accomplishment. Check out this clip.
I welcome any further addition to the urgent care space.
Mr. Albanese, you don't think 1.8 million immigrants in 5 years is going to increase demand on the medical system? What about the fact that people my age can't get any housing, we can't get rentals anymore, we have no future in this country anymore? Do you think that's kind of ridiculous? No? You can't touch me, mate.
Now, at the time of writing this script, we have an election coming up in about a month. Who knows when this video will actually be finished? And this guy was asking our current Prime Minister a legitimate question, and they had no answer, because they know they're intentionally fucking up the housing market for their own personal gain. So it's only going to get harder and harder to get into the market. And here I am, having done it myself. I only achieved this by 1. Living at home for a lot longer than usual, 2. Working the supermarket job each weekend for the past 4 years, instead of quitting and working only the one job, and 3. Smart investing/buying. I bought this block of land since it was larger than the other available lots. It was in a good spot in the neighborhood. It was in a good area, had the size for 4 bedrooms, so all these factors pumped up its value in recent years. My block of land cost $325,000, and it was recently valued at $375,000. My house cost me about $272,000, but if you built today, it would cost you about $302,000, likely way more depending on the builder. So, I'm in a rare position, a youngish guy who has his own place, and a decent one at that. No disrespect to those who have a 1-bedroom apartment, anything is great in this economy. But obviously, there's a big difference between that versus the place I have. My mortgage repayments are only about $560 a week at the current interest rates. They're only this low due to the huge down payment of $187,000, which I achieved due to diligent savings and working a lot. But if you used a larger loan from the bank to cover for the house, obviously your repayments would be much higher. Now, after taxes and a company share purchase plan, I earn about $550 a week from my weekend job. Some weekends I can earn a bit more. I literally almost cover my mortgage with my part-time weekend job. So my full-time accounting income is almost all mine exclusively to do with as I please. Additionally, I can rent out these 3 spare bedrooms even if I make $220 per room, which is kinda low for Australia in this region. That's an extra $660 a week. That alone covers my mortgage itself. There's also currently $122,000 of usable equity in my home, which is something you can use towards another property, which I will worry about more in the coming years. So, point is, I'm a very rare outlier. You won't see many dudes in my country in this situation, since, understandably, most dudes do not want to work 7 days a week for 4+ years while studying their advanced career qualification. On top of this, I'm pretty well versed in the whole stock market thing, meaning there's extra income that I have over others by using this avenue. And I have a monetized YouTube channel, which isn't really a big deal. It doesn't make much at all. It's actually lost money every year it's been active once you consider costs such as video editing software, microphones, thumbnails, etc., let alone all the lost time I could have been doing something else. But my point is, I also have other income streams going that have the potential to morph into something grand. Now, regarding my house, it's in a nice area and has space. What I'm implying is that it's a great place to settle down. Most people get their dream homes in their 40s. Well, I already have one on my own before the age of 30. Yeah, again, it's not a beachfront mansion, but find me another guy in my country that has this around my age. I personally only know 2 of them, and they both have decent careers from a useful uni degree, and they also lived at home for quite a while. Besides them, the only guys that do have partners, and they bought together. There was 2 incomes involved. So obviously, it's much easier with 2 full-time incomes versus 1 full-time income and 1 part-time income. And those guys aren't on the dating market anyway, so they don't matter for the sake of standards and dating. So my house, close to schools, close to shopping centers, close-ish to beaches, a 15-minute drive from the CBD, can't complain. So I have this, and for a prospective partner, this would absolutely be a big plus. Would I let her move in with me after a few months of dating? Fuck no. But if things have been going well for several years, and she has her own income and assets, well, would I then consider letting her move into this decently sized house in a great location? Absolutely, since with her own assets, there's much less I stand to lose in the event of a future breakdown. We could make some sort of fair plan where we both walk away with a fair amount of assets if we split. She's substantially less likely to be vindictive if she has her own skin in the game compared to some chick who's bringing nothing to the financial table in the event of a potential relationship breakdown. Hedge your bets. So all of these factors are why I feel I have the right to ask for a partner who's financially stable. My income potential is easily $130,000 plus, honestly even more at the rate the career path is growing. $140,000 used to be the peak income I would see from these job listings. Now I already see many $150,000 to $160,000 jobs listed. I already have a house in this country that has especially unaffordable housing. My mortgage repayments are quite low, so I'm not struggling week to week. I could afford semi-frequent holidays and fancy weekend getaways. And hey, at this rate, I'll have an enormous savings buffer within 2 years' time, even with no rental income, which chances are I will. Even if my incomes from my 2 jobs stay stagnant for a couple of years, which they honestly might, I doubt I'll get raises at my current job in this economy. But hey, gotta be grateful I even have a job. Jobs are precious commodities in this economy. But point is, it's not like I have a house, but I'm eating ramen noodles for dinner each night. I have savings buffers. I'm living comfortably. Now, notice how my desired trait in a partner was financial stability. I didn't say she needs to make $120,000 a year, or she needs to have her own house, or she needs to have several income streams. I could very easily ask for these as well, since I've achieved them myself. It wouldn't be hypocritical, but I'm a reasonable man, despite what some of the comments are no doubt going to say. I'm aware what I've done / what I'm doing is well outside what's considered ordinary. I'm not expecting the same, but I am expecting you to have your own income. I could have no house, no second job, no other income streams, but I would still be, all things considered, financially stable due to my accounting job / career and my CPA qualification. The point I'm making is, for me, becoming a baseline level of financially stable was quite easy. Like I said, the second job and other income streams and the house was not part of my financially stable definition. If all that was required was my full-time job and studies, yes, the CPA study was brutal, but I didn't ask for someone with an advanced qualification. I asked for financially stable. You could have finished your teaching/nursing degree or a trade and been done with your study. Yeah, I know you can do extra study for those fields, but again, I'm not even asking for that. I'm asking for you to have a decent paying full-time job and to not be terrible with your money. So back to me. If I didn't work that second job that whole time, or had spent all that time listening to finance/stock market stuff, or spent all that time making YouTube videos, do you know how much extra free time I would have had? So much. My last 4 years of my life would have been substantially easier without the 18 hours of work on the weekends, listening to fun podcasts/YouTube videos instead of informative/educational ones, because the stock market, and spend my spare nights and weekends playing video games or hanging out, or being on Tinder trying to hook up with other girls, instead of working another job or making YouTube videos and learning stock market stuff and setting up additional income streams. I could have been playing video games that whole time, but instead I use that time to build other income streams, because stocks and YouTube. And there's extra subsections of income streams that branch from the stock market and YouTube. I also got into the real estate market several years earlier than what's normal due to my extra hustle, and set myself up for a much easier future. If you're a woman, would you prefer a guy who did what I did, or would you prefer a guy who played video games in his spare time over the past 4 years and hooked up with random girls? My point is, to me, working a full-time job is easy compared to working a full-time job and doing everything else I did. And that's all I ask for in a partner, a full-time job, financial stability. I'm not asking for all the extras I did. I'm just asking for the full-time job. To me, that is a very simple ask, because if that's all I had over the past 4 years, my life would have been so much easier. It wouldn't be easier now, but it would have been easier in the past 4 years because I would have had a much more lax routine. So I feel I've made my point. All these reasons are why I feel it's 100% justified and fair to ask for a partner who has financial stability, because I am also financially stable myself. Now, next point, I want a gym girl. I've listed my reasons. And now, why do I feel justified in asking for a gym girl? Well, I already showed examples earlier, but I'm also a fit guy myself. I feel I fit the mold of someone who's aesthetic. So yeah, my point is made. I'm a fit guy myself, hence why I also feel it's fair to ask for a fit partner. Last point, why do I feel it's fair to ask for a non-ho? Well, simply because I am also not one myself. I've talked to heaps of girls over the years, like years and years ago, during my uni days, and kissed a number of them in nightclubs, so I'm no patron saint, but I didn't sleep with all of them, and even then, pashing a number of chicks in a club is super tame compared to most other dudes out there who'll actually go the full mile and fuck anything that moves. It's like Jurassic World with the Indominus Rex. She will kill anything that moves. These fellas will fuck anything that moves. I have seen some dudes who want a girl who's got a low body count, meanwhile their body count is high. Like what? No, bro, you hypocrite. Bro cannot be making these sort of demands. But I can. My count is extremely low for someone like me, which I'll mention in a follow-up video, like the more superficial genetic traits of mine. By all counts, I could have been a huge man-ho, but nope, I just chatted to a lot of women, and I've been locked in over the past 4 years, so that's why I want a non-ho, because I am also not one myself. So those are the 3 main points for this video. Now, what I was going to do next was show a bunch of comments from others, specifically women, that further support section 3 of this video. I was also going to show a bunch more reactions too, but this script is already 14 pages long, which means the video is probably about an hour and 20 minutes. It's long enough as is, so I will make a separate video showing all of those extra bits and bobs. So, everything listed in this video relates to my 3 requirements in a partner, my reasons why, and my justification for it. So, what about you? What are your requirements in your own partner? And can you justify your own comments? Tell us about it. I'm sure the comments section will be a great read. Thanks for watching. That is all.